I started keeping a list of the things I ate because he asked me to. Not in a forceful way. He didn't demand it or make it sound like an ultimatum. He just said, one evening while we were cooking together, that he'd read somewhere that people who track their food tend to feel more in control of their health. And I'd mentioned feeling sluggish lately, hadn't I? So maybe it would help. He even offered to set up a shared spreadsheet so he could help me stay consistent. I remember laughing a little, saying it seemed excessive, but he smiled and said it wasn't about restriction, it was about awareness. And that made sense to me. I'd been complaining about low energy for weeks. I'd been the one who brought it up first. So I said yes. The spreadsheet had columns for date, meal, portion size, how I felt afterward. He added a notes section for water intake and exercise. It was thorough. Thoughtful even. He told me not to stress about filling it in perfectly, just to do my best. He said he'd check in every few days to see how I was doing, maybe spot patterns I couldn't see myself. It felt like support. By the end of that first week, he'd sent me 3 gentle reminders when I forgot to log dinner. Not nagging, just nudges. Hey, don't forget to update the sheet. I want to make sure you're taking care of yourself. And I appreciated it. I really did. I'd always been terrible at follow-through. He was helping me build a habit. Then he started adding suggestions. He noticed I was eating a lot of bread and pasta. He said it kindly, framed it as concern. I just wonder if that's contributing to the fatigue. Maybe we could try cutting back for a couple weeks and see if you feel different. He sent me a few articles about blood sugar and inflammation. He offered to meal prep with me on Sundays so it wouldn't feel overwhelming. I agreed. It seemed reasonable. And he was putting in the effort too, wasn't he? Researching, planning, cooking. It felt like care. The first Sunday we meal prepped together, he'd already bought all the groceries. He said he wanted to surprise me, to make it easier. Everything was lean protein, vegetables, quinoa. Clean eating, he called it. He portioned everything into containers, labelled them by day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. He even added little motivational notes on some of the lids. You've got this. Feeling strong today. I felt grateful. I felt seen. But by Wednesday of that week, I was starving. The portions were smaller than I was used to, and I kept thinking about toast, about cheese, about the leftover birthday cake still sitting in the fridge from my co-worker's celebration the week before. I mentioned it to him that night, laughing it off, saying maybe I'd underestimated how much I actually needed to eat.
He didn't laugh. He looked at me seriously and said, "That's just your body adjusting. You've been overeating for so long that normal portions feel small. Give it another week. Trust the process."
I didn't eat the cake. I threw it away the next morning before work. He didn't ask me to, but I knew it would make him happy. And I wanted him to be happy with me. I wanted to be the person who could commit to something, who could follow through. I wanted to prove I wasn't weak.
When I told him that evening, casually, that I'd tossed the cake, he smiled and kissed my forehead. "I'm proud of you," he said. And I felt that warmth spread through my chest, that sense of accomplishment. I'd done something right. By late May, we'd added a morning weigh-in to the routine. He suggested it after I told him I'd lost a few pounds and felt pleased about it. He said tracking weight alongside food would help me see what was working. He bought a smart scale that synced to an app. He set it up so we could both see the data. Accountability, he said. It's easier when you're not doing it alone.
I stepped on the scale every morning after I used the bathroom, before I drank water. He told me that was the most accurate time. The number appeared on my phone, and on his. If I lost weight, he'd text me something encouraging. If the number went up, even by half a pound, he'd send a thoughtful message. Maybe check yesterday's log and see if there was too much sodium. Don't worry, we'll figure it out. I started dreading the mornings the scale went up. I'd stand there, staring at the number, feeling my stomach drop. Then I'd open the app, scroll through the previous day's entries, trying to find what I'd done wrong. Too much dressing on the salad, an extra handful of almonds. I'd make a mental note, a promise to do better. The exercise started around the same time. Not in an aggressive way. He just started suggesting we go for walks together after dinner. Then the walks became runs. Short ones at first. He said it would help with my energy, my mood, my sleep. And it did, initially. I felt better, clearer. But then he started tracking those too. He bought us matching fitness watches. He set up challenges, goals, weekly mileage targets. He'd check my stats in the evening and comment if I hadn't hit my steps. "Rough day?" he'd ask. "Want to do a quick loop around the block before bed?" And I'd feel guilty if I said no, so I usually didn't. One Tuesday evening in early June, I came home from work exhausted. I'd had back-to-back meetings, a headache, and I just wanted to sit on the couch and do nothing. But he was already in his running gear, lacing up his shoes, asking if I was ready. I said I thought I'd skip it tonight. He stopped, looked at me, not angry, just concerned. "Are you okay? You've been so consistent. I don't want you to lose momentum." I told him I was just tired. "I get that," he said. "But you'll feel better after. You always do. Come on, just 20 minutes. I went. And he was right, in a way. I did feel slightly better, but I also felt something else, something I didn't have a name for yet. A tightness. A sense that I'd failed a test I hadn't known I was taking. The meals got stricter. He started questioning things I'd bought at the grocery store. Not outright forbidding anything, just asking questions. Do we really need that? Is that on the plan? I thought we were avoiding sugar this month. I'd put things back. It was easier than explaining. He began cooking almost all our meals. He said it was simpler that way, more efficient, and he was good at it. The food was healthy, well balanced, often delicious. But I stopped choosing what I ate. I stopped even thinking about it. I just ate what he made, when he made it. I noticed one evening, washing dishes, that I couldn't remember the last time I'd cooked for myself. The last time I'd stood in the kitchen and thought about what I wanted, what sounded good. It had been weeks, maybe longer. When we went out with friends, he'd look over the menu with me and suggest what I should order. "The grilled chicken looks good," or "the salad with salmon." If I ordered something else, pasta, a burger, he wouldn't say anything in front of everyone, but later, in the car, he'd bring it up. "I noticed you went off plan tonight. That's okay. Everyone needs a break. Just maybe log it so we can see how it affects things." I started to hate eating in public. My co-workers invited me to lunch less frequently. At first, I thought they were excluding me, but then I realized I'd turned them down so many times they'd stopped asking. I'd made excuses about having food at my desk, about saving money, about meetings that didn't exist. The truth was, I didn't want to navigate a menu with them watching. Didn't want to explain why I was ordering plain grilled chicken and steamed vegetables. Didn't want to see their faces when I turned down dessert. By mid-July, I'd stopped seeing some of my friends as often. Not consciously at first. But plans would come up and he'd point out that I had an early run the next morning, or that we'd already eaten out twice that week and it was throwing off my progress. He never told me not to go. He'd just express concern, ask if I was sure, mention that he'd miss me, suggest an alternative time that somehow never materialized. And I'd cancel, because it felt easier, because I didn't want to derail everything we'd worked on, because disappointing him felt worse than disappointing them. My best friend Anna called me out on it in late July. She asked if I was okay, said I seemed distant. I told her I was fine, just busy. She asked if it was him, if he was controlling. I laughed. I actually laughed. I said no, he's just supportive. He cares about my health. She went quiet for a moment, then said, Okay, but you know you can talk to me, right? I said I knew, but I didn't call her back for 3 weeks after that. When I finally did, the conversation felt strained. She asked what I'd been up to, and I realized I didn't have much to say. My life had narrowed to a routine I hadn't chosen but couldn't seem to escape. Work, run, eat, log, weigh, repeat. The sex changed too. He started commenting on my body more, complimenting my collarbone, my hip bones, the flatness of my stomach. He'd touch me in ways that felt performative, like he was inspecting progress. He took photos of me sometimes, said he wanted me to see how far I'd come. I felt proud and uncomfortable at the same time. And then one night in August, I reached for him and he pulled back slightly. He said he was tired. I said that was fine. But then he added quietly, I just think, maybe if you hit your goal weight first, you'd feel more confident. And I'd know you were really committed. I didn't know what to say. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and I felt something crack inside me. Not loudly, just a hairline fracture. Barely noticeable. I hit the goal weight 2 weeks later, and he moved it. You're doing so well, he said. I just think another 5 pounds and you'd really be at your best. Don't you want to see what that feels like? I did it. I don't know why. Or maybe I do. Because by then I didn't know how to stop. Because I'd invested so much. Because he kept saying he was proud of me and I needed to hear it. My clothes didn't fit anymore. I was cold all the time. My period stopped. I told myself it was temporary. Just my body adjusting. He said the same thing. He said it was normal when you reached a certain body fat percentage, that it would come back. He sent me articles about female athletes. He made it sound like an achievement. Work became difficult. I couldn't concentrate. I'd sit in meetings and realize I hadn't heard a single word. I was too busy thinking about what I'd eat later, whether I'd logged everything correctly, whether the scale would go up tomorrow. My mind felt foggy, sluggish. I'd read emails 3 times and still not understand them. My manager noticed. She asked if everything was all right. I said yes. She didn't look convinced. She suggested I take a few days off. Said I seemed burnt out. I thanked her and said I'd think about it. But I didn't take the time off. I was afraid if I stayed home, he'd add more routines, more structure, more ways to optimize my days. One evening in early September, I came home to find he'd reorganized the kitchen. He'd thrown out everything that wasn't on the approved list. Olive oil, honey, the dark chocolate I kept in the cupboard for occasional treats. I asked him why. I'm helping you, he said. You've been slipping lately. I can see it in the logs. I thought if we removed the temptation, it would be easier. I stared at the empty cupboard and felt something close to rage. But it was buried under so many layers of exhaustion and confusion and shame that I couldn't access it. So I just nodded. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay there listening to him breathe, and I tried to remember the last decision I'd made on my own. I couldn't. What I wore was influenced by whether I had a run planned. What I ate was decided by him, where I went, who I saw, how I spent my time. All of it filtered through his concern, his suggestions, his gentle guidance. I got up and went to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the person staring back. Not just because I looked different, thinner, sharper, but because there was something missing from my eyes, some spark or defiance or selfhood that I couldn't locate anymore. The next day at work, Anna texted. She said she was worried. She said she hadn't seen me in over a month. She asked if we could have coffee that weekend, just the 2 of us. I stared at the message for a long time. I thought about what he'd say, whether I had a run scheduled, whether it would derail the plan, and then I thought, what plan? Whose plan? I typed back. Yes, Saturday morning, let's do it.
That's great. You should see your friends. Just maybe don't eat anything too heavy. We have meal prep that afternoon. I didn't respond. Something in me had shifted. Some small refusal that I couldn't name yet but could feel taking root.
Saturday morning, I met Anna at the cafe we used to go to all the time before. She hugged me and I realized how thin I'd gotten by the way her arms felt around me. She didn't comment. She just ordered us both coffee and a pastry to share. I stared at the pastry. A cinnamon roll, glazed and enormous. The kind we used to split every weekend, laughing and pulling it apart with our hands, licking sugar off our fingers. You don't have to eat it, she said quietly. But it's there if you want it. We talked. Not about him at first, just about work, about her life, about a trip she was planning. Normal things, easy things. And slowly I felt something in me relax. Just a fraction. My shoulders dropped, my jaw unclenched. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding myself. Then she asked gently how I was really doing. And I started crying. Right there in the cafe. Not dramatically, just silent tears that I couldn't stop. She reached across the table and held my hand. She didn't say anything, just held on. I told her everything. The spreadsheet, the weigh-ins, the meal prep, the cancelled plans, the moved goal weight, the reorganized kitchen, the sex, the fog, the fear. And as I said it all out loud, I heard it differently. I heard what it was. She didn't call him names. She didn't tell me to leave. She just asked, "Do you want this?" I said I didn't know. She said, "Then maybe start there. Maybe start with what you do want." I looked down at the cinnamon roll. I broke off a piece, put it in my mouth. It was sweet and soft and perfect. I started crying harder. Anna smiled. "It's just a pastry." But we both knew it wasn't. I went home that afternoon and I didn't log what I ate. For the first time in months, I just didn't. He noticed that evening. He asked if I'd forgotten. I said no. He waited. "So?" I said I didn't want to anymore. He looked confused, hurt even. "I don't understand. We've come so far. Why would you stop now?" I didn't have a good answer. Or maybe I did, but I couldn't articulate it yet. So I just said, "I need a break." He tried to convince me. He listed all the progress I'd made. He reminded me how much better I felt. He said he was only trying to help, that he cared about me, that he didn't understand why I was sabotaging myself now when I was so close. Close to what? I wanted to ask. But I didn't. I just repeated that I needed space to figure things out. He asked what that meant. I said I didn't know yet. The next few days were tense. He'd look at me across the dinner table with something like disappointment. He'd check his phone, presumably looking at the empty spaces where my logs used to be. He stopped asking about my runs, stopped commenting on my body. The absence of his attention felt like punishment and relief in equal measure. I started eating differently. Not binging, not rebelling in some dramatic way. Just eating when I was hungry. Stopping when I was full. Having toast with butter. Adding cheese to things. It felt revolutionary and terrifying. The scale stayed in the bathroom, but I stopped stepping on it. The watch stayed on my wrist, but I stopped checking my steps. The spreadsheet stayed in my browser bookmarks, but I didn't open it. And slowly, very slowly, I started to feel something returning. Some sense of myself that had been buried under all that structure. By the third week of September, I knew I couldn't stay. Not because he was cruel, not because he yelled or threatened or became violent, but because I was realizing that the quietest kind of control is the kind that never announces itself. The kind that dresses up as care and concern and investment in your well-being. The kind that makes you complicit in your own erasure. I started looking at apartments. I didn't tell him. I'd go during lunch breaks, pretending I had errands to run. I found a small studio across town. Nothing special, just a space that was mine. When I finally told him I was moving out, he looked genuinely shocked. He asked, "Is this about the food tracking?" He said, "We can stop. I've been thinking we should ease up anyway." He offered, "I'll go to couples counseling." He promised, "I'll give you more freedom." But that was the problem, wasn't it? That he thought freedom was his to give. I told him it wasn't about one thing. It was about all of it. The slow accumulation of tiny surrenders that had added up to a life I didn't recognize. He grew quiet. Then he said, "I was just trying to help you be your best self." And I thought about that phrase. Your best self. As if there was some platonic ideal of me that existed in his mind, and his job was to chisel away everything that didn't match it. I said, "I think I need to figure out who that is on my own." He didn't understand. And maybe that was the clearest sign of all. I moved out on a Sunday in late September. Anna helped me pack. She didn't ask many questions, just showed up with boxes and tape and her steady, reassuring presence. He wasn't there. He'd said it would be too hard to watch. The new apartment felt enormous and empty. I didn't have much furniture, didn't have much of anything really, but I had space. I had silence. I had the ability to wake up and decide what I wanted for breakfast without consulting an app or a person or a plan. The first few weeks were strange. I kept expecting to hear his voice, his suggestions, his gentle corrections. I'd stand in the grocery store, frozen in front of the bread aisle, waiting for permission that wasn't coming. I'd skip a run and spend the whole evening bracing for a comment that never arrived. I gained weight. Not a lot, just enough that my clothes fit again, that my period came back, that I stopped feeling cold all the time. And I watched the number on the scale rise with a mixture of panic and relief. Panic because I could still hear his voice telling me I was slipping, losing control, giving up. Relief because I was feeding myself again. Actually feeding myself. He sent messages for a while. Long ones, explaining his perspective, asking what he'd done wrong. He said he'd only wanted the best for me. He said he couldn't understand why I'd throw away all that progress. He said he missed me. And I read them, but I didn't respond. Because I knew that engaging would mean explaining, and I didn't owe him that. I didn't owe him anything. Anna came over often those first few months. She'd bring wine or takeout or sometimes just herself. We'd sit on my small couch and watch bad TV, and she'd let me talk through it when I needed to, or sit in silence when I didn't. She never said, "I told you so." She just said, "I'm glad you're here." It took months to untangle it. To stop hearing his voice when I ate. To stop feeling guilty for resting. To trust my own body again. Some days I still struggled. I'd catch myself mentally logging a meal, calculating calories, judging portions. The habits had worn grooves in my brain that didn't disappear just because I'd changed apartments. But I was learning. Learning that discipline doesn't have to mean deprivation. That care doesn't require surveillance. That I could want to be healthy without making it my entire identity. That my body could be something I lived in, not something I controlled. I started cooking again. Slowly at first. Simple things. But I'd stand in my small kitchen chopping vegetables or stirring pasta, and I'd feel something close to joy. The ability to choose. To change my mind halfway through. To add more salt because I felt like it, not because a recipe or a person told me to. I saw him once, months later, at a coffee shop. He was with someone new, a woman I didn't recognize. She was thin, put together, laughing at something he'd said. And I watched him glance at her cup, at what she'd ordered. And I saw his face do this small calculation, this quick assessment. And I knew. I left before he saw me. I didn't want to talk to him, didn't want to hear his explanations, or his questions, or his concern. I just wanted to go home to my small apartment and eat whatever I wanted for dinner without thinking about it. Anna asked me recently what I'd say to him if I saw him now. I thought about it for a long time, and I realized I wouldn't say anything. Because there's nothing he could hear that would change what happened. He believed he was helping. He probably still does. In his mind, he was the supportive partner who encouraged healthy habits, who cared about my well-being, who wanted me to reach my potential, and maybe he did care. Maybe that's what makes it complicated. Because care and control aren't opposites. Sometimes they're the same thing wearing different clothes. Sometimes the person who holds you down believes they're holding you up. But I know now that needing help is not the same as needing someone to take over. That love should make you bigger, not smaller. That the quietest kind of control is the kind that disguises itself as concern. The kind that makes you grateful even as it hollows you out. The kind that convinces you that your own instincts are wrong, that your hunger is weakness, that your body is a problem to be solved. I eat what I want now. Not always perfectly, not without hesitation. But it's mine. The choice is mine. I don't track anything. I don't weigh myself. I don't have a goal weight or a meal plan or a fitness target. I just live. I just eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full, and some days that's more, and some days it's less, and both are fine. And some mornings, I wake up and realize I haven't thought about the spreadsheet in days, haven't wondered what he'd think of my breakfast, haven't felt that tight anxiety in my chest about whether I'm doing it right. Those mornings feel like victory. Quiet, unremarkable victory. The kind no one sees. The kind no one can take credit for. The kind that's entirely mine.